Technomic Talks webinar on the topic of broker consolidation and what it means to the industry. I'd like to talk just a moment and acknowledge IFTA's support of Technomic's webinar series, and they've been with us as we've started this whole process. So thank you very much. So let's get started. My name is Heidi Keithley, and I'll be leading today's review of broker consolidations. If you have any questions, please be sure to email me or type in a question via the GoToMeeting comment section right here that you should see up in your corner page, and those will be routed back for answers. So today's objectives, we're going to go through a little bit of an overview. We'll talk about the broker evolution and what we've seen. We'll talk a little bit about and review the supply chain partners and how those alignments are taking place, what we've seen, what the expectations are. We'll also be able to delve just a little bit into what the future holds, what we're hearing and what we're seeing out in the industry on what the next steps are. And then we'll close with a few key topics or key points for conclusion. So let's start off with the broker consolidation. This was inevitable. With all low-growth, highly fragmented supply chains eventually consolidate. We've seen that with banks. We've seen it with grocery, airlines, hardware. All of these different types of businesses or industries have consolidated at some point or another. And food service is really not any different. What we're seeing today is also not just the broker consolidation, but we're seeing a continuation of the consolidation with manufacturers as well as distributors. And we see that evidence in the news today as well. Generally, when there's a consolidation within an industry, there's 3 to 4 dominant players that emerge, and there's usually that rule of 3. So we've seen 3 national organizations emerge, and they're really looking at it from maximizing those economies of scale, eliminating a lot of that duplication, and that's where those efficiencies are coming from. Now, in addition to the 3 national organizations, we do see a mix of the regional and super regionals, and there's also the independents or specialty companies that are out there. And then we've also seen, and this is not just in our industry, but also other industries, is that sometimes there's that unprofitable middle group as well. In addition, from an overview perspective, we're starting to see distributors that are looking to the brokers for that category expertise, especially those larger national distributors who are going down the path of category management. And they're really looking at trying to collaborate on and work jointly on those market strategies. So what does the broker landscape look like? Back in 2008, you see that 95% were independents and only about 5% were regional. And then you take a look at today, and we now have 60% of the brokers and agency types that are out there are made up of that national agency. And then we have about 20% that's regional and 20% that's independent. And it's important to call out that we truly feel and believe that all 3 of these agency types will thrive, as we hear from Rick Abraham with FSMA. So when we take a look at that comparison before and after, and you can see in 2008 there were over 600 agencies. There were a lot of single market agencies as well. There weren't any nationals back in 2008, and there were about 3 to 5 regionals and a lot of local owners. And there's a lot of concern regarding consolidation that had to be overcome, that agency ownership changes, the market upheaval at the time and what was going on from an economic perspective. A lot of relationships were fractured as well, and just that lack of focus that has taken place as this consolidation, as this evolution has continued, and just a lot of inconsistent representation. And all of them, and going through all of that has led us to where we are today in 2014 with less than 150 agencies or broker agencies. There's a mix of different footprints that we see out there. 3 nationals have emerged, as we talked about, and about 10 to 15 different regionals. So what we see is that the broker agencies today, especially the larger ones, are actually representing more broadline volume today than they did 6 years ago. And what about the manufacturer perspective? Let's take a look at that for a moment. We're looking at their desired benefits of what the national broker and that collaboration with the manufacturer and what they were trying to achieve. Certainly, they looked at it from a geographically aligned perspective. It allows them to eliminate duplication because they're really trying to minimize the number of manufacturer sales folks that are going out as well as the number of broker sales folks that are going out. So you streamline those processes for efficiency. That collaboration that has been intended to take place as well, instead of that it's one-to-one versus one-to-many, meaning having a manufacturer talking to one agency, that national broker, and improving those that collaboration and the communication, versus having one manufacturer talk to a group of different agencies that they had representing them. Sometimes there could be 20 different agencies, 30, 40, up to 50 different agencies could potentially represent a line of product for just one manufacturer. So there's been a lot of efficiencies and communication efficiencies through that as well. And through all of these efficiencies and eliminating duplication, it allows for that speed to market to take place much more at a faster pace. In addition, there's a lot of accountability. When you look at a promotion from a manufacturer and you're working with that national broker, they can compare notes, they make adjustments, and they can change it around much, much quicker and communicate it much more effectively when you're working with that one-on-one communication, once again, working with that national broker, versus trying to make those adjustments on a promotion and try to convey it to your 30 or 40 or 50 broker agencies that you would have had in the past. So more efficiencies perceived and identified in looking at a national broker. They have well-defined processes that allow for that speed to market as well. And through all of these efficiencies, we see that it really helps to be very cost efficient, especially for the number of SKUs that are covered through larger manufacturers. Now that's the expectations from the manufacturer perspective. Now that we're in this for a couple years, we've also heard some of those concerns are rising to the top as well. Some of those expectations are not necessarily being met currently. There seems to be a high level of turnover at the broker agencies at the national level, and a lot of these folks are just trying to find the right fit, get the right skill levels, and ensure that the right people are in those leadership positions. And building that and stabilizing those teams that they have is an ongoing process. Another concern of the manufacturer is that prioritization of the line among the rest of the broker's line. There are commitments as far as how they go out and they sell and where that product is identified in priority, but at the same time, a broker still has the responsibility of several other manufacturers or lines of product. So there's a concern that's been expressed in that means as well. Also the caliber of the sales team and that level of product knowledge. Because there's been such a great enormous amount of change, the salespeople, the new sales folks, the new lines of product, there has been a challenge to try to get everybody up to speed and trained on understanding what that product benefits are and the product attributes. So there's also a gap there, and certainly the distributors are feeling it as well, but the manufacturers are concerned from that perspective. So all in all, there's just a level of impatience in looking for results and really wanting to see that sales growth that has been identified with going through and with a national manufacturer. Now let's take a look at the national broker perspective. These folks are going out there and they are looking at the consistency that they provide with having one voice communicating with their clients. So that consistent representation is a real key factor for our national brokers. It's also a single point of contact across multiple markets. Once again, the efficiency of that communication and that collaboration isn't just in one local area. It's conveyed across an entire nation or in multiple markets. They also convey their specialty in certain segments. They have a focus on commercial as well as a focus on non-commercial, and they've really done a lot of work in specializing on segments such as colleges and business and industry and K through 12 and healthcare, which all allow them to specialize and elevate their expertise. Looking at their scale and funding, certainly from a national perspective, they are able to invest further into their effectiveness of communication, into market intelligence and the data that they're able to provide and convey, not just to manufacturers but also to distributors. Elevating their people and their knowledge and the expertise is another area of opportunity and what they're focused on, as well as making sure that they have culinary expertise on their teams in addition to the rest of their team. And there's also an appeal to multi-regional and national distributors, especially as we continue to go down this path of category management. So from a regional broker perspective, there's a lot of benefits here as well. The owners are very much part of their organization and they have a personal commitment. They also are very, very much, and they have a huge focus on cultivating those customer relationships. And they do over-communicate, especially through technology. So while the larger brokers are creating positions relative to meeting profit goals, when we talk about profit requirements versus a national, the local, the regionals are really reinvesting back into their people and how to, and culinary and technology. Where larger brokers are looking at their positions and some of them are actually decreasing the number of feet on the street in order to meet profit goals. So there seems to be a little bit of a differentiation in that arena from what we've heard. And looking at the distributor perspective relative to national brokers, there's fewer agencies that exist per market, so fewer choices and fewer RSMs that are out there. They've seen a lot of that line shifting that's been significant, and the product knowledge has decreased, and there's a minimal trust with brokers. So based on our October survey with our distributor partners, about 50% indicated a negative impact, and 50% indicated that they have not seen any significant impact as well. So, has this rapid change created a collaborative or a competitive environment? I think real collaboration is going to become extremely essential. So through all of this, one of the biggest obstacles has been adapting to that rapid pace of change, which we all know can be certainly a challenge. And through all of this, the good news is that the national status has been achieved. Acquisitions have slowed down. There is a focus now, and it's shifting more towards adding value in the markets. And we wouldn't be surprised if maybe there's a possibility of a fourth national broker as well. So remember, we mentioned this earlier, that each broker agency needs the other, but all three agency types are going to be viable: the national, the regional, and the independent, because they need each other. Manufacturers need a choice, and they're going to be looking for places to go. And there's a lot of manufacturers that are still on the sidelines. They're waiting to see how all of this evolves and what the next steps are going to be. But it's going to really require continued focus and execution. And as we look at what the future holds, one of the new partnerships that has recently been announced is the Affinity Group. This is a group of 7 regional sales agencies that was formed called Affinity, and they're strategically aligned to provide customized coverage based on those customer client needs. They're going to remain independently owned, but they feel that they offer flexibility with local, regional, and national go-to-market strategies. So I think if anything that we've learned, that the roles will continue to develop. Local market negotiating, planning, execution is continuing to shift. Where so much of it was done at the manufacturer and broker level, we see a lot of it moving towards the broker and distributor level. Brokers are strategically aligned with corporate distributors. We're starting to see more of that, especially as the U.S. and the Cisco merger continues to take place and as these larger organizations, distributor organizations, move forward with category management. There's a lot of brokers or a lot of alignment coming into play in aligning with source categories and having the broker very much involved in that. Data sharing and data information is certainly going to continue to evolve as well and develop. The breaking down of those barriers involving sharing data is extremely important, especially opening up those lines of communication and sharing the data for much more collaborative networking and go-to-market strategies. And of course, the brokers are going to continue to build upon their best-in-class broker technology through CRM models, category management, market analysis, and sales execution. So as we talk about these roles continuing to develop, we really see much more collaboration amongst all the supply partners. But where does that lead us? It leads us to understanding what that balance of power is, where it is today versus where it may be tomorrow. And a lot of this is up for discussion. There's so much evolution, so many changes taking place today that a lot of this hasn't been finalized, but food for thought. When we look at the broker in today's world or yesterday's world, the broker would represent the manufacturer line. As everything continues to consolidate and move forward and collaborate on so many different levels, we can see that the broker is going to potentially represent source categories. What does this lead to? Today we see how manufacturers are competing with other brands, and those brokers that are representing those manufacturers are competing with those other brands. But if we have brokers that are going to be representing source categories for a manufacturer, you could potentially have manufacturers that are going to be, one, competing against themselves, but you have broker organizations that might have specific broker teams working on a source category that potentially would be competing against other broker, against their own broker teams covering other lines of product. So that's also part of where the potential of where we could be going. And compensation itself. We see commission-based compensation is certainly a big part of today's environment. There's a lot of concern that has taken place because commissions have been reduced. But where does pay align in all of this as we move forward? And will there be more of a fee-for-service compensation? I believe that if the detriment is to the manufacturer who is writing the check, meaning that if they're not going to have their lines represented or that competition and competing against themselves is going to be much more of a bigger role, then that compensation will certainly lead to more of a course change than what we're even looking at today and looking and considering today. So a peek at the future. Manufacturer and distributor consolidations are going to continue to have further impact. We are looking at the Cisco and U.S. Foods merger and acquisition today. We've also heard about the Tyson and the Hillshire Farms acquisition and collaboration as well. So that is going to continue, which is certainly going to have an impact on where and how the industry continues to move forward. We're probably going to see other models continue to emerge as well. And we saw the Affinity Group and what they've done from taking the regional models and working together under that, within that role and group of 7. And what else are we going to see? So anticipate further there. And then more products are going to be ordered electronically. Who knows where all of this and how the supply chain evolution is going to continue to take place. Online ordering is going to continue. Amazon is going to be a big part. We continue to have that play a role in how we're moving forward within the food service industry. And not just ordering product online, but social media as well is going to continue to have an influence in the industry as we move forward. And consider distributors potentially with their own broker. Where does that play in all of this? And is that part of what the future holds for the food service industry as well? Certainly areas of opportunity that allows us to continue to speculate. So as we draw a conclusion to today's segment on broker consolidations, a few key takeaways. The broker consolidation has slowed. We're going to see more focus on execution and more value being added into the markets and all of those services that are really going to help elevate where they are currently now that we're past most of the consolidation. We're not going to see results immediately. We're going to, as any evolution continues, you do see a lot of those tangible results continue to flow in as the efficiencies continue to play a key role. And distributors haven't seen a positive benefit, but I think as the collaboration continues, folks will start to see much more of how the broker and the manufacturer alignment and that independent and codependent relationship will continue to evolve as well, and the distributors will gain a benefit from it. And then lastly, the power distributors are engaging brokers in source category representation that is taking place. Well, how is that relationship and how do those market negotiations and execution and compensation play a role as that entire landscape continues to evolve as well? So what we know is that this evolutionary process is going to continue, and we have a lot of new and exciting things that we're going to all continue to play a role in as we move forward. And that leads us to our next upcoming webinars. August 12th is an update on the cash and carry channel, and then September 9th is the food industry merger and acquisition activity. We hope you're able to join us at that point. Thank you again for your time and your attention, and if you have any questions, please be sure to send them along, and we'll be sure to get back in touch with you as soon as possible. Have a great day. Thank you. Bye-bye.